Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and stared at the energy bars that kept him trapped in this small room on Zephyr Prime. The 16-year-old human boy had been here for 3 weeks now, waiting for this day to come. Today was the day. They would kill him in front of the whole galaxy, and everyone would watch it happen on their screens at home. The room was white and clean and empty except for the chair and a small window that showed him the city outside. Tall buildings made of strange alien metal reached up into the purple sky, and flying cars moved between them like insects. Jake had never seen anything like this place before he was brought here from his home on New Earth Colony. Everything here was so different from the simple farms and small towns where humans lived. Through the window he could see the big platform where they would bring him soon. Workers were setting up cameras and lights and testing the equipment that would broadcast his death to thousands of worlds across the Federation. Jake knew that his mother Linda would be watching from their tiny apartment back home, and the thought made his chest hurt. She had tried so hard to save him, but no one would listen to a human woman when powerful aliens wanted justice. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and 2 Zellarian guards walked in. They were tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes that never seemed to blink. Their leader was Ambassador Thex Aller, who had demanded Jake's death after his son Crix was found dead in an alley on New Earth Colony. Jake remembered that night 3 months ago when everything changed. He had been walking home from his job at the supply depot when he heard someone crying for help in the dark alley between 2 buildings. Jake found a human girl named Kate being attacked by Crix and 2 other young Zellarians. They were drunk and laughing as they hurt her and tore her clothes. Jake shouted for them to stop, but they just laughed harder and said that humans were made to serve aliens like them. When Crix pulled out a knife and pressed it against Kate's throat, Jake knew he had to do something. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung it as hard as he could. The pipe hit Crix in the head, and the alien boy fell down hard. The other 2 Zellarians ran away when they saw their friend bleeding on the ground. Jake helped Kate get away, but when the authorities came, they only found Crix's body and Jake's fingerprints on the pipe. No one cared that Jake was protecting an innocent girl. No one cared that Crix had been the one with a weapon. The Federation court said that humans had no right to harm aliens, even in self-defense, and that Jake must pay with his life to show other humans their place in civilized society. Ambassador Thex Aller used his political power to make sure the trial was fast, and the sentence was death. Now Chancellor Vorik himself was coming to Zephyr Prime to oversee the execution personally. The Chancellor was the most powerful being in the Federation, and he wanted to make an example of Jake that would be remembered for generations. Every news channel in the galaxy would show a human boy dying as punishment for daring to fight back against his betters. The guards spoke to each other in their clicking language that hurt Jake's ears. One of them held up a device that showed the time. Jake could see numbers counting down, and he knew they meant he had less than 1 hour left to live. His hands started to shake, but he tried to stay brave like his mother had taught him. She always said that humans might be weaker than aliens, but they could be stronger in their hearts. Outside the window, more ships were arriving in the sky above the city. Jake could see the huge Federation battleships with their curved hulls and glowing engines. Smaller news vessels darted between them like fish around sharks. Everyone wanted to get the best view of the human boy's death, and Jake felt sick thinking about how many people would watch him. The door opened again, and a different alien walked in. This one was a Corvin with gray skin and 4 arms. He wore the uniform of a Federation officer and carried a datapad in one of his hands. He looked at Jake with his yellow eyes and spoke in the common galactic language that all species used to talk to each other. The execution will begin in 30 minutes, he said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. You will be taken to the platform where Chancellor Vorik will read the charges against you. Then the energy field will activate and your death will be quick. Do you have any final words that you wish to broadcast to the galaxy? Jake thought about this for a moment. He could say he was sorry, but that would be a lie because he was not sorry for saving Kate. He could beg for mercy, but he knew that would not change anything. Instead, he looked at the officer and said something that surprised even himself. Tell "Them that humans are not as weak as you think we are," he said quietly. "Tell them that someday they will understand what we are really capable of when we fight for what is right." The Corvan officer made a noise that might have been laughter. He wrote something on his datapad and left the room without another word. The Zelarian guards looked at each other, and one of them said something that made the other one bare his teeth in what Jake thought was meant to be a smile time. Moved very slowly after that. Jake watched the ships in the sky and tried not to think about his mother crying at home. He tried not to think about Kate and whether she was safe. He tried not to think about his father who had left when Jake was 7 years old and never came back. His mother said that Ryan Cooper had been called away on important business, but Jake always wondered if his father had just gotten tired of being married to humans, who could never be as good as aliens. The guards came for him when the countdown reached 0. They put energy restraints on his wrists that made his arms feel heavy and numb. The restraints would make sure he could not run or fight back when they brought him to the platform. Jake walked between the guards through long white corridors, filled with more aliens who stared at him as he passed. When they reached the platform, Jake could see thousands of creatures gathered to watch his death. There were Zelarians and Corvans and tall bird-like saurians and many other species that Jake did not recognize. All of them were here to see justice done to the human who had dared to kill his betters. Camera drones flew around the platform, recording everything from different angles. Chancellor Vorik stood at the center of the platform wearing flowing robes that changed color as he moved. He was a Trilaxian with 3 eyes and skin that looked like liquid metal. His voice boomed across the platform as he began to speak about human violence and the need for order in the galaxy. Jake barely listened to the words because he was looking up at the sky. Something was wrong with the ships above them. The Federation battleships were moving in patterns that did not make sense, and Jake could see flashes of light between them that looked like weapons fire. The crowd below had not noticed yet because they were all watching Chancellor Vorik's speech, but Jake kept staring at the sky. The Chancellor finished reading the charges and gestured toward the execution device. It looked like a chair surrounded by spinning rings of metal that would create an energy field powerful enough to kill anything inside it. The guards pushed Jake toward the chair, and he sat down because he had no choice. The restraints locked him in place, and he could not move as the rings began to spin faster and energy started to build between them. Jake heard a sound he had never heard before. It was like thunder, but it came from above instead of from clouds. He looked up and saw that the Federation ships were definitely fighting something, but he could not see what it was. Then, just as the execution device reached full power, everything stopped. The energy rings froze in place and the sound cut off completely. Chancellor Vorik stared at the machine in confusion and spoke to his technicians in an angry voice. One of them ran to a control panel and started pressing buttons, but nothing happened. A new voice spoke across the platform using the same communication system that had been broadcasting the execution. It was a human voice speaking in clear Galactic common, and every alien in the crowd turned to look at each other in surprise. "This is Admiral Ryan Cooper of the Human Defense Fleet," he said, and his words echoed across Zephyria Prime. "I am ordering the immediate release of my son Jake Morrison, and I am calling for all humans in Federation space to remember who they really are." Jake felt his heart stop beating for a moment. His father was alive, and he was here. Admiral Ryan Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the execution platform through the main view screen. His hands gripped the command rail so hard that his knuckles turned white as he saw his son Jake sitting in that terrible chair surrounded by alien guards and thousands of creatures who wanted to watch him die. Ryan had not seen his boy in 9 years, and now Jake was a young man facing death because he had tried to protect someone. The bridge around Ryan was filled with humans who had been waiting for this moment for almost a decade. Lieutenant Beth Parker stood at the communications station, and her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she coordinated with human assets across the galaxy. Captain Nick Adams commanded the weapons systems, while Commander Lisa Hayes managed the ship's defenses. All of them had families they had left behind to serve in this secret fleet that no alien government knew existed. Ryan's mind went back to the day he had walked away from Linda and 7-year-old Jake on New Earth Colony. It had been the hardest thing he had ever done, but the mission was too important to risk. Human intelligence had discovered that the Federation was planning to relocate all human colonies to less desirable worlds and reduce their population through controlled breeding programs. The aliens saw humans as useful servants, but they also feared human unpredictability and wanted to limit their growth. The only way to stop this plan was to gather information from inside the Federation military and build a hidden fleet that could protect humanity when the time came. Ryan had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission, which was to infiltrate Federation command and work his way up through their ranks while maintaining contact with human resistance cells. He had changed his identity and spent years earning the trust of alien officers who never suspected that the quiet human advisor was actually gathering their secrets. Building the fleet had taken almost 10 years of careful planning. Humans working in shipyards across the galaxy had stolen materials and hidden construction projects inside asteroid fields and empty star systems. What looked like civilian cargo ships and mining vessels were actually warships with hidden weapons and military-grade shields. The Federation had always underestimated human engineering skills and never noticed that human ships performed better than they should have. Ryan's network included thousands of humans in key positions throughout Federation space. Dr. Susan Blake worked in the main communication hub on Kepler Station and could disrupt alien military channels when needed. Captain Alex Turner commanded what appeared to be a simple mining operation but was actually a mobile weapons platform. Colonel Frank Moore led security forces on 3 different worlds and had been quietly recruiting human soldiers for years. The plan had always been to wait until humanity was strong enough to demand independence through negotiation rather than war. Ryan hoped they could avoid massive bloodshed by demonstrating their capability and forcing the Federation to respect human rights. But when he learned that his own son was going to be executed as an example to other humans, Ryan knew that the time for hiding was over. Beth Parker turned from her station and gave Ryan a status report. All human ships were in position around Zephyria Prime and the other target systems. The communication networks were ready to be taken over and human forces on T-worlds were prepared to act. Dr. Blake had already begun disrupting Federation military channels, and several alien commanders were reporting problems with their equipment. Tryon looked at the countdown timer that showed how much time was left before Jake's execution. They had managed to override the execution device temporarily, but Chancellor Vorik would not wait much longer before finding another way to kill his son. Every second they delayed gave the Federation more time to organize their defenses and call for reinforcements. The Admiral opened a channel to speak directly to his son, even though he knew it would reveal his location to every Federation ship in the system. Jake needed to know that his father had not abandoned him and that everything Ryan had done for the past 9 years was to protect his family and his species. Jake, he said, and his voice carried across space to the platform where his son sat trapped in the execution chair. I know you probably hate me for leaving you and your mother, but I want you to understand that I never stopped loving you. Everything I've done has been to make sure that humans like you will never have to bow down to aliens who think they are better than us. Through the viewscreen, Ryan could see Jake looking up at the sky as if he was trying to find his father's ship among all the Federation vessels. The boy looked so much like Linda with his dark hair and green eyes, but Ryan could see something in Jake's face that reminded him of himself. It was the stubborn determination that had made Ryan volunteer for this mission in the first place. Chancellor Vorik was shouting orders at his technicians and pointing at the disabled execution device. The Trilexian leader had spent years building his reputation as the one who kept humans in their place, and Jake's rescue would make him look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Ryan knew that Vorik would rather start a war than let a human boy escape. Federation Justice Beth Parker reported that Federation battleships were beginning to move toward Ryan's position. Admiral Kethmer of the Saurian Empire was demanding to know why the execution had been stopped and threatening to destroy any ship that interfered with Federation law. The aliens were confused and angry, but they had not yet realized how many human ships were hidden among their own fleet. Ryan made the decision that would change everything for humanity. He ordered all human ships to drop their disguises and reveal themselves as military vessels. Across the Zephyria system, cargo ships and mining platforms suddenly activated hidden weapons and raised defensive shields. What had appeared to be a small Federation patrol fleet was actually a human armada that had been hiding in plain sight. The bridge screens lit up with tactical displays showing dozens of human warships taking position around the planet. The Federation crews were shocked to see vessels they had ignored for years, suddenly bristling with advanced weapons and sophisticated defense systems. Ryan's flagship revealed itself as a heavy cruiser that could match any alien battleship in firepower. Captain Turner's mining vessel dropped its industrial disguise and became a fast attack ship loaded with human-made missiles. Commander Hayes led a squadron of fighters that had been hidden inside what looked like civilian transports. All across the system, human voices filled the communication channels as captains reported, "Ready for battle." The Federation fleet tried to respond, but found that their communications were being jammed by Dr. Blake and her team on Kepler Station. Their tactical computers showed conflicting information and their weapon systems experienced mysterious malfunctions. Years of human sabotage and intelligence gathering were finally paying off as alien commanders discovered that their own equipment could not be trusted. Ryan opened a channel to Chancellor Vorik and the entire Federation fleet. His words were broadcast across the galaxy as news networks scrambled to understand what was happening. "Chancellor Vorik," he said in a calm voice that carried more authority than any alien leader, "you have 30 seconds to release my son and withdraw your forces from this system. If you refuse, then you will learn why humans should never be underestimated." Evik's response was filled with rage and disbelief. He screamed that humans were servants who had forgotten their place, and that the Federation would crush this rebellion before it could spread. The Chancellor ordered his ships to attack Ryan's fleet and destroy every human vessel in the system, but as the Federation ships prepared to fire, Ryan played his final card. Beth Parker activated a signal that reached every human ship and station across the galaxy. It was a simple message that had been prepared years ago for this exact moment. The message told humans everywhere that the time for hiding was over and that they should reveal their true strength to the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, human colonists who had seemed weak and helpless suddenly activated hidden defenses and took control of key facilities. Human crews on Federation ships revealed themselves as saboteurs and began disabling alien vessels from within. The mining operations and cargo routes that kept the Federation economy running were suddenly controlled by humans, who had been pretending to be simple workers. Ryan watched the tactical display as his carefully planned revolution began across the galaxy. Every human who had suffered under alien rule was finally fighting back and showing the Federation that humanity was not the weak species they had believed. The execution of one human boy had become the spark that lit a fire across the stars. On the platform below, Jake was still trapped in the execution chair, but now he was watching his father's ships engage the Federation fleet in battle. Energy beams and missile volleys lit up the sky above Zephyria Prime as human and alien forces clashed for the first time in galactic history. Jake could see that some of the human ships were taking damage and being destroyed, but more kept appearing from hidden positions. Ryan knew that rescuing his son would cost many human lives and might start a war that would spread across the galaxy. But as he watched Jake sitting bravely in that chair and remembered all the years he had missed with his family, Ryan also knew that some things were worth any price. Humanity had been slaves for too long. The news of the stopped execution spread across the galaxy faster than light itself as communication networks carried the story to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. In homes and offices and public spaces everywhere, aliens and humans watched their screens in shock as they tried to understand what was happening on Zephyria Prime. The images showed human warships that should not have existed fighting Federation forces that had never been challenged before. On the mining world of Kepler 7, Captain Alex Turner was converting his industrial ship Horizon into a weapon of war when the emergency broadcasts reached his crew. Turner had been waiting 9 years for Admiral Cooper's signal, and now that it had finally come, he felt both excitement and terror at what they were about to do. His ship had been built to look like a simple or processor, but hidden beneath its hull were missile tubes and energy cannons that could destroy any alien vessel. Turner's crew of 40 humans had been chosen carefully over the years. Engineer Pete Collins had designed the hidden weapon systems, while Communications Officer Mary Walsh had been intercepting Federation military traffic and passing intelligence to the Resistance network. Weapons specialist Don Brooks had trained the crew in combat tactics using simulators disguised as mining equipment. The conversion process took 6 hours as hidden panels opened to reveal military-grade systems that had been concealed for years. The Horizon's cargo bays became fighter launch platforms, while its ore processing equipment transformed into point defense systems. When the work was finished, Turner had a heavy cruiser that could match any ship in the Federation fleet. Similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds as humans revealed their true capabilities. On the agricultural planet of New Texas Farm, workers opened hidden bunkers filled with weapons and vehicles. The grain silos that fed half the Federation contained missile launchers, and the irrigation systems could be converted into defensive barriers. What had appeared to be a peaceful farming world was actually a fortress that could resist any invasion. Dr. Susan Blake worked frantically at her station in the Kepler Station communication hub as she began the most important sabotage operation in human history. Blake had spent 7 years gaining access to the Federation's main communication networks and learning how to disrupt their military channels without being detected. Now she was using that knowledge to blind and confuse alien forces across the galaxy. The doctor's fingers flew over her controls as she inserted false data into Federation tactical computers and redirected their communication signals through human-controlled relays. Enemy commanders found that their ships were reporting incorrect positions and their weapon systems were targeting the wrong coordinates. Blake's sabotage made it impossible for Federation forces to coordinate their response to the human uprising. On the prison platform, Jake Morrison sat in the disabled execution chair and watched the battle raging in the sky above him. The energy restraints that held him in place had failed when his father's fleet jammed the Federation systems, but Jake did not try to escape. He was surrounded by alien guards and thousands of hostile creatures who wanted to see him die. Instead, he listened to the voices on the communication channels as humans across the galaxy revealed themselves and began fighting for their freedom. Jake heard Captain Turner reporting that the Horizon was ready for combat and moving to engage Federation ships near the mining worlds. He heard Dr. Blake coordinating communication jamming operations that were disrupting alien military networks. Most importantly, he heard his father's voice giving orders to human commanders and promising that no human would ever again be executed for defending themselves. The boy tried to understand how his father had managed to build a secret fleet and organize a galaxy-wide resistance movement. Jake remembered Ryan Cooper as a quiet man who worked in the colony's engineering department and never seemed interested in politics or military affairs. Now he was learning that his father had been one of the most important leaders in human space and had sacrificed his family life to prepare for this moment. Linda Morrison watched the news broadcasts from her small apartment on New Earth Colony as she tried to comprehend what was happening to her world. Her husband, who had abandoned her and Jake 9 years ago, was now revealed as Admiral Ryan Cooper, commanding a fleet of human warships. The man she had cursed for leaving them was actually fighting to save their son and liberate their entire species. Linda's neighbors gathered in her apartment as they watched the battle footage and listened to the reports coming from across the galaxy. These were simple colonists who had never imagined that humans could challenge the Federation's power. They had accepted their role as second-class citizens and believed that aliens were naturally superior to their own kind. Now they were seeing human ships destroying Federation vessels and human soldiers taking control of key installations. The broadcast showed Chancellor Vorik on the execution platform screaming orders at his subordinates as they tried to restart the device that would kill Jake. The Trilaxian leader's reputation depended on maintaining Federation authority, and he could not allow a human boy to escape justice. But every time his technicians repaired one system, Dr. Blake's sabotage would disable Another component ambassador, Thexaler, arrived on the platform with a squad of Zilarian soldiers and demanded that Jake be executed immediately using conventional weapons if the energy device could not be repaired. The ambassador had lost his son and wanted revenge against the human who had killed him. Thexaler did not care about Federation law or proper procedures as long as Jake Morrison died in front of the galaxy. The argument between Chancellor Vorik and Ambassador Thexaler grew more heated as both aliens realized that their authority was being challenged by a species they had always considered inferior. The Federation had controlled the galaxy for centuries by convincing other races that cooperation was better than conflict. Now humans were proving that sometimes fighting was the only way to achieve real freedom. Jake listened to their argument and began to understand the political forces that had shaped his life. The Federation was not the benevolent organization that protected weaker species as they claimed. It was a system designed to keep certain races in power while others served them. Humans had been placed in the servant category and were never supposed to realize their own potential in the space battle above Zephyria Prime. Admiral Cooper's fleet was engaging Federation forces while trying to minimize casualties on both sides. Ryan knew that humanity's best hope for the future lay in proving they could be strong without being cruel. He ordered his ships to disable alien vessels when possible rather than destroying them completely. The battle was not going entirely in humanity's favor as Federation reinforcements arrived from nearby systems. Admiral Kethmore of the Saurian Empire brought a squadron of heavy battleships that outgunned any human vessel. The Saurians had always been the Federation's military enforcers, and they were determined to crush this human rebellion before it could spread further. Captain Turner's ship Horizon engaged a Saurian destroyer and found itself outmatched by superior alien technology. The human vessel's shields failed under concentrated fire, and Turner was forced to ram his ship into the enemy destroyer to prevent it from attacking other human vessels. Both ships exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The loss of the Horizon and its crew reminded everyone that this rebellion would not be won without sacrifice. Humans had surprised the aliens with their hidden strength, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned by species that had been building warships for centuries. Victory would require more than just revealed fleets and sabotaged computers. Admiral Cooper opened a communication channel to the entire Federation and made an offer that shocked every alien leader. He proposed an immediate ceasefire and negotiations for human independence in exchange for the return of stolen Federation technology and the peaceful resolution of territorial disputes. Ryan was offering the aliens a chance to avoid a galaxy-wide war if they would simply recognize humanity's right to self-determination. Chancellor Vorik rejected the offer and demanded that all human ships surrender immediately or face complete destruction. The Trilaxian leader had spent his career maintaining Federation authority and could not accept any challenge to alien supremacy. He ordered his forces to continue the attack and declared that humanity would be taught a lesson they would never forget. Ambassador Thexaler grew tired of waiting for the execution device to be repaired and drew his personal weapon to kill Jake himself. The Zilarian's energy pistol could not be disabled by Dr. Blake's sabotage, and he aimed it at Jake's head while screaming about revenge for his dead son. The assembled crowd cheered as they anticipated finally seeing the human boy die, but Jake Morrison was no longer the helpless victim he had been at the beginning of this ordeal. Listening to his father's voice and watching humans fight across the galaxy had awakened something inside him that had been sleeping for 16 years. He was the son of Admiral Ryan Cooper, and he carried the same determination that had driven his father to sacrifice everything for humanity's freedom. As Ambassador Thexaler prepared to fire his weapon, Jake looked directly into the alien's black eyes and spoke words that would be remembered. The energy blast from Ambassador Thexaler's weapon hit empty air where Jake Morrison had been sitting just seconds before. The execution chair was empty, and the human boy was nowhere to be seen on the platform. The assembled crowd of aliens looked around in confusion as their guards searched frantically for the escaped prisoner who should not have been able to move. Jake had rolled off the chair and crawled behind a section of equipment when the ambassador drew his weapon. The failed sabotage of the execution device had created gaps in the energy field that held him, and Jake had been waiting for the right moment to escape. Now he crouched behind a control panel as chaos erupted around him. Admiral Ryan Cooper watched his sons escape through the tactical displays on his flagship and felt pride mixed with terror. Jake was free, but he was still trapped on a platform surrounded by thousands of hostile aliens who wanted him dead. The rescue mission had to succeed quickly before the Federation forces could reorganize and overwhelm the human fleet across the galaxy. Admiral Cooper's network of hidden assets began revealing themselves in coordinated operations that had been planned for years. On the industrial world of Titan base, human workers took control of the shipyards that built Federation vessels. The aliens discovered that their most important military facility was actually run by humans, who had been sabotaging production and stealing technology for decades. Commander Lisa Hayes led a squadron of human fighters that had been disguised as maintenance shuttles around the orbital platforms above New Mars. When the signal came, her pilots dropped their disguises and attacked the Federation garrison that controlled the system's defenses. The aliens found themselves fighting enemies who knew every weakness in their installations because humans had helped build them. Colonel Frank Moore commanded security forces on 3 different Federation worlds and had been quietly replacing alien personnel with human agents over the past 5 years. When the uprising began, Moore's people simultaneously seized control of communication centers and government buildings on all 3 planets. The Federation suddenly lost contact with important systems they had controlled for centuries. Dr. Susan Blake expanded her sabotage operations from the Kepler Station Communication Hub to include the main computer networks that coordinated Federation military forces. Her programs began inserting false data into enemy tactical systems and redirecting supply shipments to human-controlled worlds. Blake had turned the Federation's own technology against them. The most shocking revelation came when dozens of Federation ships suddenly turned their weapons on their own fleets. These vessels had human crews who had been serving on alien ships for years while secretly gathering intelligence and waiting for the chance to strike. Captain Jim Norton commanded a Saurian destroyer that had been patrolling the outer systems, and his betrayal caught his alien officers completely by surprise. The scope of the human infiltration became clear as Admiral Cooper's carefully hidden network revealed itself across the galaxy. Humans had been placed in key positions throughout Federation space and had spent years preparing for this moment. What had appeared to be a small rebellion on Zephyria Prime was actually a coordinated uprising that spanned hundreds of worlds. Chancellor Vorik realized that the Federation was facing a threat unlike anything in its history. The humans had not simply stolen some ships and declared independence as he had first believed. They had spent years infiltrating every level of Federation society and gathering the resources they needed to challenge alien authority. The Chancellor ordered all Federation forces to treat humans as enemy combatants and shoot them on sight. This command backfired as it revealed how many humans were actually serving on alien ships and stations. Thousands of humans who had been hiding their true loyalties were forced to choose sides, and most of them chose to fight for their own species. On the execution platform, Jake Morrison crawled through the chaos as alien guards searched for him among the panicking crowd. The platform shook as explosions from the space battle above sent debris raining down on the assembled spectators. Many of the aliens were trying to escape, while others demanded that the guards find and kill the human boy immediately. Ambassador Vexaler screamed orders at his Zilarian soldiers as they formed search teams to hunt for Jake. The ambassador's political career depended on getting revenge for his son's death, and he could not return home without the human boy's body. He offered rewards to anyone who could capture Jake alive so that the execution could continue. Jake reached the edge of the platform and looked down at the city below. The buildings were hundreds of feet tall, and there was no way he could climb down without being caught. Behind him, he could hear the guards getting closer as they searched through the equipment and debris. He needed help but had no way to contact his father's ships. The answer came from an unexpected source as human resistance. Fighters who had been hiding in the city launched their own attack on the platform. led by a woman named Carol West who worked in the city's transportation system. These humans had been waiting for years for the chance to fight back against their alien oppressors. Carol's team used explosive charges to damage the platform's support structures, while snipers hidden in nearby buildings began targeting the alien guards. The platform tilted as one of its main supports failed and several pieces of equipment slid off the edge. In the confusion, Jake was able to reach a maintenance ladder that led down into the city. The human resistance fighters had prepared escape routes and safe houses throughout the city for exactly this type of operation. Jake found himself being guided through back alleys and service tunnels by people who knew every hidden passage in the urban maze. These were ordinary humans who had lived under alien rule their entire lives, but who had never stopped hoping for freedom above them. The space battle continued as more Federation reinforcements arrived to fight Admiral Cooper's fleet. The human ships were outnumbered, but they had advantages that the aliens had not expected. Years of intelligence gathering had given them detailed knowledge of Federation tactics and weaknesses. The human vessels also carried weapons that incorporated stolen alien technology with human engineering innovations. Dr. Blake's sabotage operations had provided the Resistance with access to Federation research data that allowed them to develop countermeasures for enemy defenses. Human ships could penetrate alien shields and their missiles could overwhelm Federation point defense systems. Admiral Cooper's flagship engaged Chancellor Vork's command vessel in a duel that would determine the outcome of the battle. The two ships were evenly matched in firepower, but Ryan had the advantage of knowing his enemy's tactics from years of serving alongside Federation officers. He used this knowledge to anticipate Vork's moves and position his ship for maximum effect. The tide of battle began to turn in humanity's favor as more hidden human assets revealed themselves throughout the Zephyria system. Mining platforms activated concealed weapons and attacked Federation ships that had ignored them as harmless industrial facilities. Cargo vessels opened their holds to release fighter squadrons that swarmed around surprised alien commanders. Captain Alex Turner's sacrifice had not been in vain, as his ramming attack inspired other human crews to take desperate chances against superior enemy forces. The Horizon's destruction showed that humans were willing to die for their freedom, and this knowledge shook the confidence of Federation crews who had always seen humans as cowardly servants. Jake Morrison reached the safety of a Resistance hideout in the lower levels of the city as the battle raged overhead. Carol West and her team had risked their lives to save him, and now they were all trapped together as Federation forces searched the city. Jake finally had a chance to rest and think about everything that had happened. The boy realized that his father had not abandoned his family as he had always believed. Admiral Ryan Cooper had made the ultimate sacrifice by leaving his wife and son to protect his entire species. Everything Jake had suffered, including his arrest and trial, had been part of a larger plan to awaken humanity and show them their true potential through the hideout's communication equipment. Jake could hear reports from across the galaxy as humans everywhere joined the fight for independence. His rescue had become the spark that ignited a revolution spanning hundreds of worlds. The execution that was supposed to demonstrate human weakness had instead revealed their hidden strength. Ambassador the Xalar's voice came over the communication channels as he broadcast threats and demands for Jake's surrender. The Zalarian diplomat promised to destroy the entire city if the human boy was not returned to face justice. But Jake Morrison was no longer just a condemned criminal. He had become a symbol of human resistance and proof that no alien authority could break the human spirit. The battle for Zephyria Prime continued, but the real war for humanity's future had already begun across the galaxy. The battle above Zephyria Prime ended when Chancellor Vork's flagship suffered critical damage from Admiral Cooper's concentrated fire and was forced to retreat with the surviving Federation vessels. The space around the planet was filled with debris from destroyed ships, both human and alien, but the human fleet had achieved something that no one thought possible. They had defeated Federation forces in open combat and rescued Jake Morrison from execution in the Resistance hideout beneath the city. Jake listened to his father's voice as Admiral Cooper addressed the galaxy through captured communication networks. Ryan's words reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds as he explained why humanity had been forced to reveal their hidden strength. He spoke about years of discrimination and abuse that had culminated in the attempt to execute an innocent boy for defending himself. The Admiral's speech included evidence that Dr. Susan Blake and her intelligence network had gathered over the past decade. They had documented cases of humans being denied basic rights and forced to live in conditions that no alien would accept. The data showed that human colonies were deliberately given the worst planets while their resources were taken to benefit alien worlds. Most shocking of all was the revelation about Ambassador Thexaler's son Crix and the night he died on New Earth. Colony, human surveillance equipment had recorded the entire incident, and the footage clearly showed Crix attacking an innocent girl with a knife while Jake Morrison tried to protect her. The evidence proved that Jake had acted in self-defense and that the Federation courts had ignored the truth to make an example of him. The broadcast reached Linda Morrison in her apartment on New Earth Colony as she watched her husband speak to the galaxy for the first time in 9 years. She finally understood why Ryan had left his family and spent so long building the Resistance Network. Everything he had done was to prevent other human families from suffering the same separation and loss across the galaxy. The revelation of human capabilities sent shockwaves through alien governments that had never imagined their servants could challenge their authority. Some species, like the peaceful Turellians, expressed support for human independence and called for negotiations to resolve the crisis. Others, like the militaristic Saurian Empire, viewed the human uprising as a threat that had to be eliminated. Before it inspired other subject races to rebel, the evidence of Federation injustice and the dramatic rescue of Jake Morrison began to change public opinion throughout the galaxy. Many aliens had believed that the Federation protected weaker species, but now they saw that it actually oppressed them. News networks that had ignored human suffering for years suddenly began investigating other cases of Federation abuse. Chancellor Vorik tried to maintain control by declaring martial law and ordering all human colonies to surrender their weapons and submit to occupation by Federation forces. But his commands were ignored as humans everywhere refused to return to their former status as second-class citizens. The failed execution had awakened something in humanity that could not be put back to sleep on dozens of worlds. Human colonists who had seemed weak and helpless revealed defensive systems that had been hidden for years. The farming communities that fed the Federation were actually fortress worlds that could resist invasion. The mining operations that provided raw materials were mobile bases that could relocate when threatened. Captain Alex Turner's sacrifice during the battle had inspired other human commanders to take incredible risks in defense of their freedom. His ship Horizon was gone, but his crew's courage lived on in the stories that spread throughout the human fleet. Turner had proven that humans would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Dr. Susan Blake expanded her sabotage operations to include the Federation's economic systems as well as their military networks. Her programs began redirecting trade routes and financial transfers to benefit human worlds while causing shortages on alien planets. Blake was using the Federation's own infrastructure to support the human rebellion. The scope of the human infiltration became clear as Admiral Cooper's agents revealed themselves in positions throughout Federation space. Humans had been placed as advisors to alien governments and had spent years gathering intelligence about their plans and weaknesses. What had appeared to be a sudden rebellion was actually the result of decades of careful preparation. Jake Morrison finally reunited with his father when Admiral Cooper's shuttle landed in the city square that had been secured by Carol West and her resistance fighters. The boy who had been condemned to die as an example of human weakness was now embraced by the man who had sacrificed everything to save his species. Their reunion was broadcast across the galaxy as a symbol of humanity's triumph over oppression. Ryan looked at his son and saw the same determination that had driven him to leave his family and build the Resistance Network. Jake had grown into a young man who understood that freedom was worth any price and that sometimes fighting was the only way to achieve justice. The boy had become a symbol of human courage that would inspire future generations. The human rebellion spread beyond the Zephyria system as colonies throughout the galaxy declared independence from Federation rule. Admiral Cooper's network had given humanity the tools they needed to claim their freedom, but it was up to each world to decide how to use them. Some chose to negotiate with their alien neighbors while others prepared for war. Ambassador Thexaler's political career was destroyed when the evidence of his son's crimes became public knowledge. The Zilarian diplomat who had demanded Jake's execution was now facing charges for covering up the truth and manipulating the Federation courts. His fall from power showed that even the most influential aliens could not escape the consequences of their actions. The Federation faced rebellions from other subject species who had been inspired by humanity's example. The Corvan mining worlds demanded better working conditions, while the Trilaxian agricultural colonies refused to ship food to Federation military bases. The rigid hierarchy that had kept the galaxy peaceful for centuries was crumbling as oppressed races everywhere began to assert their rights. Chancellor Vork's government struggled to maintain control as more alien species questioned their loyalty to the Federation. Some worlds declared neutrality in the conflict, while others offered to mediate between humans and their former rulers. The Chancellor's authority was based on the belief that the Federation was necessary for galactic stability, but the human uprising had proven that cooperation could exist without domination. Jake Morrison addressed the galaxy alongside his father in a broadcast that marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. He spoke not as a victim of Federation injustice, but as a representative of humanity's future among the stars. His words carried the voice of every human who had suffered under alien rule and dreamed of something better. The boy told the galaxy that humans did not want revenge against their former oppressors, but they would never again accept second-class status. He said that humanity had proven their worth through years of service and sacrifice, and now demanded the respect that all intelligent species deserved. His speech was translated into thousands of languages and reached every corner of known space. The final scene showed Linda Morrison aboard Admiral Cooper's flagship as she was reunited with her family for the first time in 9 years. She watched through the viewscreen as more human ships revealed themselves throughout the galaxy and declared their independence from Federation control. The hidden fleet that Ryan had built was just the beginning of humanity's emergence as a major power in galactic politics. Jake stood beside his parents on the bridge of the flagship and looked out at the stars that had once seemed so far beyond human reach. The galaxy was vast and dangerous and filled with species that might never accept humanity as equals. But Jake had learned that his people possessed something that no alien could understand or defeat. They had the courage to fight for what was right even when the odds seemed impossible. The execution that was meant to demonstrate human weakness had instead revealed their greatest strength. They were a species that would never stop believing in freedom and justice, no matter how powerful their enemies or how hopeless their situation appeared. The galaxy would have to learn to deal with humanity as partners rather than servants, because the age of human submission was over. Admiral Ryan Cooper looked at his son and saw the future of their species in the young man's determined face. Jake Morrison had survived his execution to become a symbol of human resilience and proof that no authority could break the human spirit. The boy who had been condemned to die had instead helped his entire species claim their rightful place among the stars. The broadcast ended with images of human ships across the galaxy as they dropped their disguises and revealed the true extent of their hidden fleet. What had appeared to be a small rebellion on one world was actually a coordinated uprising that spanned hundreds of systems. The Federation had underestimated humanity for the last time, and now they would have to negotiate with them as equals or face a war that could tear the galaxy apart. Jake Morrison's execution had been stopped, but his real trial was just beginning as humanity prepared to defend their newfound freedom against any force that tried to take it away.